In your book, Informal Women Workers in the Global South, you talk about the hidden role that women play in what Marxists called social reproduction, right? Work that keeps society alive and sustains it. So, largely care work, household chores, raising children. Let's define the problem statement. What are these hidden roles that women are playing in society? What are these hidden variables that are not being accounted for in employment metrics?
So this is really, if you like, the essence of feminist economics. The essence is the recognition that there is in every society a division of labor that is largely gendered, depends on whether you're a man or a woman, a boy or a girl, in which this entire job of care, and care defined broadly, looking after the young, the old, the sick, the differently abled, and the ones who decide that they need to be looked after, even if they can do it themselves, looking after, but also all the other things you mentioned, that keep the existence going: cooking, cleaning, provisioning, making sure that there's water, there's fuel, there's food, there's all of those things. These are all activities that have to be done. Families wouldn't exist without them. Societies wouldn't exist without them. Economies wouldn't exist without them. But when they are not done as paid work, which is most of the time, especially in low and middle income countries like ours, then they're not called work, or rather, they're not considered as employment. So all of the activities that are performed, they are fundamentally economic activities, but they're not recognized as such because they are not transacted. And because of that lack of transaction, there are many, many implications. So the first implication is that not only do you undervalue or completely devalue the work that is done, it is also then socially undervalued and devalued, because society increasingly values only the monetary benefits that you gain from work. Then the women who are doing this, not only do they have to spend an inordinate amount of time doing this unpaid work, but when they do enter a labor market, when they do try and seek employment, they tend to be clustered in low paid occupations, typically reproducing those same social roles, nursing, domestic work, etc., etc. And those, in a sense, it's because society says, well, you can get this unpaid, so why do you need to pay very much for it anyway? So you will find the greater the amount of unpaid work and the greater the proportion of women doing unpaid work in a society, the greater the gender wage gap. In India, we have very, very high proportions of unpaid workers and time spent in unpaid work. By global standards, we're very high. And we have a very high gender wage gap. On average, women get about 60% of the wages of men, on average. And you can imagine the gap is very high once you actually get into other specific occupations. Women get clustered into the low wage occupations. And then, of course, even if a man does it, then there's a wage penalty on the man as well. If a man is a nurse, they're also low paid. If a man is an attendant, they're also low paid, and so on. But the other thing is that this is actually a huge subsidy on the recognized economy, on the formal economy that we call it, okay? Because by not recognizing it, you are benefiting from it without having to, admit that you should actually be somewhere accounting for it and recognizing your debt to that economy. So it's like this formal economy is a ship sailing on this huge sea of unpaid work. And it doesn't actually have to look down and see what's on that sea. It's just floating along on it, traveling on it in this very easy way. However, it also means that both private employers and governments can utilize this fact that there is this unpaid work because of a very important feature of this unpaid work, of care work in general, which is that people care about those whom they care for. So you will continue caring, even if it's not something you will stop doing, because let's say, supposing you used to have creches for children and now you stop having those creches. And so the children, are they not going to be looked after? No, somebody will look after them. They're not going to be left on the street at that time, simply because, there is no creche. If you remove elderly care, if you do not provide opportunities for the old to be looked after, etc., does it mean that people will put their aged mother out on the road and say, okay, now that's it, I'm not going to look after them? No. All of this will continue, right? And it will continue in unpaid fashion. Now, governments actually use this. They use this because that's why in periods of downswing, in periods of fiscal stress, austerity, these are the things that are easy to cut. Across the world, not just in India, across the world, they're easy to cut because you know that work is going to get done anyway. And so it's, earlier feminists, we used to talk about gender blind economic policies. I no longer think they're gender blind. They are gender exploitative. They are governments and employers exploiting this fact that this work is going to get done anyway. So you can get away with not making any monetary provision for it.